Hello, I'm Katie Knight and welcome back to my podcast, Can You Put Me on Guest List? I hope everybody is well. Hope you've had a good week. I am very much looking forward to sharing this conversation with you. I love interviewing Adam. Every time we chat, we have great conversations, and we've been talking about getting him on the podcast for a while now. So I'm so happy that it finally happened in his gorgeous home in Ibiza. Adam has so much to share, as you can probably imagine. As the founder of Drumcode, he has built one of the most iconic labels in dance music, launching careers, shaping a signature sound, and creating a global community of dedicated fans, and I mean very, very dedicated fans. From his early days playing sweaty, intense sets at Cocoon's legendary Monday nights at Amnesia, those were the best, to now headlining Resistance at the very same club, which I'm also really looking forward to checking out. Adam's journey is a masterclass, really, in longevity, in vision, and evolution. And in this episode, we dive into the roots of his love for music, how Drumcode was born and became an absolute powerhouse, and what Ibiza has taught him about the art of DJing. We also talk about the role of residence, the emotional highs of playing at Amnesia, and the moments that still give him goosebumps decades into his career. He also shares how it feels to see Drumcode reach 30 years of Drumcode. That's so amazing. The principle he's held onto the entire time. And we also talk about the wildest, off the radar Ibiza parties that he's experienced on the island, which I just love talking about stuff like that. This episode is powered by TrackStack, the platform designed to help you build a sustainable career in electronic music. Whether you're managing demos, sending promos, leveling up your tracks, or monetizing your music knowledge, TrackStack makes the process easy and efficient. It's super easy to use, and if you want to give it a try, you can use the promo code CUPMOG. That is the first letter of every word of Can You Put Me on Guest List for 10% off for life. Right, I'm going to stop rambling now because I'm sure you'd much prefer to listen to Adam than me. So let's get going. This is the one and only Adam Beyer here on Can You Put Me on Guest List. Hello, Adam.
Hello.
How
Katie.
are you?
I'm good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Long time no see, actually.
It's been a while.
Has been a while.
Yeah. It's good to be back and see you at the beginning of the season. And
Yeah.
another year, another season.
I know. I'm glad we're doing this now rather than later on, because then it's just really hard to actually pin you down.
Yeah. May is, actually it's end of April. It's a beautiful period to do it.
Yeah, it is a beautiful period to do it. And I know that we have done a lot of interviews in the past, but I think they've always been about specific things.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I'd like to do have a conversation with you and talk a little bit about the beginnings up until nowadays and what you've got going on, because there's a lot of like your past and how you started out that I don't know. So I guess where a good place to start is, you know, where did your passion for music come from, and what kind of music were you surrounded by when you were a kid?
It started early, like as far as I can't even remember it almost, but as far as I can remember, I grew up early 80s, obviously, like, so MTV was just a new thing, and a lot of the music that got presented to you back then was either radio or MTV, and somehow I discovered Kiss, the rock band Kiss, when I was 4 or 5, and that was my first love, like my first band that I was into. And I went to buy a record from them when I was 5. That was my first.
When you were 5?
Yeah, that was my first vinyl purchase. I saved up my weekly allowance and I went to buy an album of them. Yeah. And then that was my kind of love for a few years. I was kind of obsessed with them and that sort of Mötley Crüe and that sort of rock that was big early 80s. So those are my first memories. I also remember, and this is probably quite important, because my mom had a vinyl collection and mostly Beatles and Rolling Stones, things like that, things from her youth. But there was one album in there from Jean-Michel Jarre, which was the Oxygen album, which is probably his best album. And that was my first introduction to electronic music.
Wow.
And I used to put it on, and it was so different at that time from everything else. And I used to imagine like worlds and play like I was in space or whatever I was playing. I mean, I was young. But that album still, up until this day, sticks with me and as a very important point of understanding and start listening to electronic music. And then obviously like things like Kraftwerk and early 80s or mid 80s stuff came along. But that I listened to, that album came out 76,
Wow.
the same year I was born. So,
Special.
and it was way ahead of its time. So, so it was always there. She had it since I was born. So I remember listening to it growing up.
Did you like know when you were growing up that you wanted to build a career in music, or was it more of just like a passion?
No, since I got into Kiss, I was already, we were mimicking them and dressing up like them and doing in school or wherever we were, like doing performances as them.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be a drummer, so I started to play drums when I was 8 or 9 for quite a few years. So I thought I was going to be a drummer because I had kind of talent for it, and yeah, I was banging everything from I was a kid. My dad was a drummer as well, so runs in the family. But then I moved, so I was in a suburb of Stockholm, but then we moved into the city when I was 9, and I completely changed, you know, people that I hung out with and my environment, and they were listening to a little bit different types of music. And also at that point, I mean, this is 85, some new music started to emerge. So over the next 5 years, I got into Italo disco, early or late 80s, kind of the first hip hop that started to come, like the more commercial hip hop, like LL Cool J and Beastie Boys, Run DMC, Mantronics, like break dance, all that whole like hip hop culture that came in the late 80s, and and that also led me on to house music, and I have some relatives in the UK, so we went over to the UK to visit them, and I also had a mate in my class. I had a sister who went there, so she brought back cassette tapes with like acid house and stuff when that acid house explosion happened in 88, 89 in the UK, and you had the Summer of Love and all that stuff. So we were collecting everything dance music that we could find. I was basically I started to DJ when I was 11, so that's 87.
And was that self-taught?
I had some friends doing it as well. I had a couple of older friends, like 2-3 years older. We had a youth hangout place in Stockholm where basically the city would found places for youth to hang out with, like pool tables, music rooms, and a cafeteria and things to do after school, basically. And we had something called the disco group, so we were arranging discos for like disco nights for people in our age, and we started to DJ. I wanted to do that for a long time, and they had the equipment, so I was there every day after school practicing and stuff.
And that's how and then from there you just...
Yeah, I decided when I was 11, 12, that I was going to be a DJ, and I never looked back. So I told my mom and everything.
Really?
Yeah. So it's been quite sort of focused.
Yeah. Where was your first ever gig then?
It was there
at the youth club at 11 years old.
Club. Yeah, exactly. 11, 12 years old. And then I joined something else. It was like this DJ school. And in Swedish school, they have like 2 weeks when you're 14 and 15 of the year. You have to go and do some practice at like a normal job.
Yeah.
And I managed to get the practice at the DJ school. So I got some contacts, and then these guys who were running it, they were kind of Stockholm DJs playing at student parties or weddings or clubs or whatever it was. So they got me some gigs as well. So I started to do paid gigs when I was maybe 14, 15.
So have you ever had any other jobs that have not been
I
DJing?
was working in a grocery store after school.
Okay.
Like in the till selling or putting up groceries on the shelves or whatever it was, just to get money to buy vinyl. So that's what I was doing. And then also at the time when I was 13, my father passed away. So that gave me a little bit of money as well to buy my first own equipment. And that's how I got my own decks, because that was quite expensive stuff at that time.
Definitely.
It still is. Still is, but even more so back then.
And especially for a 13-year-old.
Yeah, exactly. So I bought my own. So I had the equipment, which was amazing, obviously. So I started to practice at home, and I just was living that life, just buying. After school, I would go. At the time, we probably had 7 or 8 vinyl stores around Stockholm. So I would go after school almost daily through all of the stores, looking for stuff, buying stuff, and just collecting.
What about producing music? When did you start that?
That started very early as well. So I went to my first rave when I was maybe 15, which is 91, and that's around the time the rave scene hit Sweden, 1991. And also I changed school because to my last 3 years, and then I met some people through the rave scene and in school, because we were a few people into this music, and one of the guys were more musically trained, and he already had a sampler, so we started to mess around in my bedroom, basically making music together, 15, 16, and landed our first record deal when we were 17. So it was all very early. I was still in school when I signed my first deal, and it was a New York label. And this is something I would always remember, because back then you have to send your demos on cassette tapes. There was no internet or anything like that. So you would record it and then copy up the tracks from 10 cassettes, and then find the addresses for the labels around the world, and then just go and send them out. And weeks went by, and suddenly one day after school I came home, and there was a message on my answering machine from New York, from a label that I really loved as well. It was called Direct Drive. It was run by Adam X and Jimmy Crash, I think his name was. And it was pretty gritty, kind of hard techno label, acid, things that we were into at the time. And they said, "Yo, we got your demo, man. We like it. We want to put it out." And, I thought I made it. It was the biggest day. It was probably one of the bigger moments in my career. I mean, how I felt. It felt so big, I was 17. So, and then we sent the DAT tapes, which you do there, and then we never heard from them again. And
then that was it?
No, and then we literally found our own record in a record store in Sweden.
You found your own record in a record
once
store.
It came out, they were not that organized, I think.
Yeah.
I don't want to say anything bad about them. They probably had their things going on. We were one of the last releases on that label as well, so probably something was going on their end. So the communication wasn't great. And back then it was only fax or phone, basically.
Yeah.
So, but we did find it about, not a year, but maybe 10 months later. So that was 1994 that came out, but we produced it in 93.
Wow. Actually going up to pick it up.
Yeah, so we had to buy our own. We bought our own record, the first, but we were just happy it was out. I mean, and then I remember hearing it, because we went to Love Parade that year, and I remember hearing people playing our record at the trucks at Love Parade in Berlin, and that was also massive for us,
Huge.
Yeah.
So after that, were you
gigging internationally at that point, or were you just kind of doing gigs in Sweden?
At that point, mostly in the raves around Stockholm and Scandinavia. So we would go maybe to, I remember being in Helsinki in Finland a few times, Oslo and also Denmark at some point. And then I did maybe 10 or 15 or 20 records for different labels. We kept going. We were in the studio every day, like did our thing. And I did a bunch of records under pseudonyms. So we didn't use our own names at that point.
What names did you use?
The first one that we just talked about, we called ourselves Slaughterhouse.
Slaughterhouse.
Because our studio was like literally based in the old slaughterhouse area of Stockholm where they used to have the slaughterhouses. And we thought it was fun because it was kind of it wasn't really house music. It was more, I think the main track was 170 BPMs. It was pretty pacey, full-on stuff. So we thought it was kind of fitting. What other names? Then we did Genicom, which we're going to come to, which is basically when I stopped school, I started working in a record store in Stockholm called Planet Rhythm, which was run by an English guy. And he also then started a label called Planet Rhythm. And that's where I kind of met and we formed what then would be Drumcode and everything we know today. And that label, Planet Rhythm, we did quite a few releases for. And I had a few pseudonyms, but one of them was Genicom, I think Wave Slaves, and something else, I don't remember.
Wow.
Did a bunch. It was more kind of hard trance sounding at that time, like 150 so BPM, 145, 150 BPMs. You could hear it was a mix between techno and hard trance. But I still felt it wasn't fully me. It was compromises because I did it together with other people and we were kind of looking for our identity. So I think that's why I didn't put my name on anything. It's kind of still experimenting. We were young, and at the time, in the 90s, like today, genres are genres. You got Afro house, techno, melodic, like everything is very crystallized. Back then, it wasn't. It was more. You would go to a rave and you could hear. You just heard like breakbeat and jungle played with R&S records from Belgium and techno and then an Italian record, and then someone would play a Primal Scream record, even indie, like it was that sort of, at least the early 90s was like that, and then it got more and more crystallized into genres. And at some point in 93 we went to Berlin and I found a lot of I think the records that really made me decide on techno, I found a lot of like Jeff Mills, all the early Jeff Mills records, his albums, but also a lot of German techno, and he was a lot more serious and dedicated and focused and almost political at points, and there was more of a concept. And before that, it was more just fun and crazy, but that was more like. It was a different take, and I think because of my hip-hop roots and everything, I liked that more serious thing about it at the time, because I was pretty serious as a teenager and in my early 20s myself, so I really identified with like Jeff Mills and then eventually Surgeon and Luke Slater and the UK guys, so that became kind of my sound for many years. Anyway, fast forward. So I was working at Planet Rhythm, the record store, and released all these records under pseudonyms. Sometimes it would take 8 to 10 months for them to be released.
Yeah.
And at that point, I felt I'd like gone so much further with my sound. I felt it was old, so I was like, I need my own output. I need to have something where I can control it, and it's only going to be me or closest friends releasing, but I want it to be a faster process. I also had this idea of, because of the techno love I had, and I was kind of moving away from the hard trance and all that, and I wanted to be more focused, I wanted to do a pure techno label. So that's how Drumcode was born.
So when you released for the first time as Adam Beyer, was that on Drumcode?
No. So I did a record on Planet Rhythm, which was our label, called Adam Beyer, but the record was called Drumcode. Drumcode's 1 and 1.1 and 2 or whatever. No, I did 2. 2 records on Planet Rhythm under Adam Beyer, but they were both called Drumcode 1 and 2. And then I started the label Drumcode.
Interesting.
So, but those records are techno. So I already found the sound. I had this idea. I remember being on a holiday in Greece, and I kind of mapped the whole release out in my head, and then I came back and I did it. And I also had the ideas of calling it Drumcode because it was very percussion based and drum heavy. And then I decided to use that name for my label.
Ah. Yeah. So you start Drumcode, and you said that your like vision or idea at the beginning was just to it was just for like you and close friends.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it was only me and the people from Sweden releasing the first 10 releases. Me, Karl Ekebusch, Joel Mull, a guy called Fredrik Almqvist. He was calling himself R&D on the records. Jesper Dahlbeck, obviously. So yeah, we did. I remember we were at that time. You would have a distributing vinyl. So I was already in touch with them because I was working in a record store. I was speaking to this like English distributions on a weekly basis, buying records. And back then, when you bought vinyl from a distribution, you would literally put your phone on speakerphone and they would play vinyl through the speakerphone. You skip through, and I would say 10 of that, 20 of that. I knew what I could sell in the store. And that's how I also met my long-time now manager, because he would be on the other side of the phone, and that's Jeremy, who was my manager still.
Way.
And he was working in distribution at the time, selling records. So I had a pretty good contact into distribution in England with vinyl. So to set up the label Drumcode for me wasn't that difficult. Back then, later on, something came along called P&D deals, where they would press and distribute and pay for cutting, mastering, pressing the records, and then just send you the revenue. At that time, that didn't exist. I had to come up with the money myself. So I had a little bit of money that I saved up. So I did press the first Drumcode release. I took a chance, basically. I cut it with my favorite cutting engineer, because that was the thing back then. You had to cut the records in the right way so they were loud and sounded good and the mastering was right and everything. And they warned me, like, yeah, don't expect too much. It's just gonna, be happy if you sell 1,000 copies back then was not great, but it was like, yeah, be happy if you sell 1,000. And I think we started with 1,500 copies pressed, and it just went in like a week.
And that was right at the beginning.
That was the first release.
Wow.
Yeah, I just hit, because it was really that time with techno, and I think I hit the right time, and I was so into that sound. And so the label, it was never a struggle with the label. It went off to a great start. And then in the beginning, I was very much in the sort of, I didn't want to show my face. I was very in sort of an underground mentality. So what I did with the first releases, I refused to repress them. So I didn't want to saturate the market. So I did smallish presses. Sometimes they got bigger and bigger because the demand was so big. But I would always keep it under the demand. So people knew that when there was a new Drumcode record, you have to grab it because you don't know if it's going to get repressed or not. And the first releases I never repressed until way later, so they became like people were fighting over them. Yeah.
Do you think if you'd done that differently, it would have been different? Like if you'd have just been like, oh, I'll just do loads and I'll press. A
little bit, because that was so much the mentality at the time. Like techno we were really protective with it, and it was. We really identified with that whole culture, and it was important to like stand for stuff. And I mean, some people still do, and they still treat techno in that way. But for me, so much has changed. But no, I think the music would have spoken for itself. It would still have been successful. It was just basically, I wasn't out to make money from it. It was just, I just wanted, it was more important, the art of it and keeping it limited. And we used to do like limited runs of other cuts and put extra tracks on some, and it was fun. Vinyl days were like that because you couldn't get hold of the music other than
Yeah.
from on the vinyl. So to keep it interesting and, you know, make people talk and find that, I mean, DJ culture was massive, and so you were always looking for vinyl that no one else had, and if you didn't get that copy, you didn't have it. You couldn't play it. Like, there was no other way of playing music. So it was a lot of fun.
Which releases or artists have really made a difference to Drumcode and what it is today?
I mean, we're turning 30 years next year, so
No.
so there's been a lot of people coming through. I mean, if we start from the beginning, I think without Karl Ekebusch, who's like kind of the grandfather of Swedish techno, if you would like, without his help in the early days, it would have been difficult for me, because he never made any of our music, but he helped us with the business and also mastering and get the sound right, and he had a lot more clue than we had. We were kind of clueless, and when I say we, talk about me and Jesper Dahlbeck and Joel Mull and like this, the closest group of friends that were producing at the time. So yeah, Karl Ekebusch, he was very influential and important early on, and then over the years, I mean, we've had people like Joseph Capriati starting with us, Enrico Sangliano, Nicole Modaber was with us early in her career, Alan Fitzpatrick, Leighton Jordani.
Yeah.
Now there's loads of people who's been with Drumcode and played the Drumcode shows, and hopefully we've helped the career at their early stage of their careers, and they're all now doing great.
And what about, you just touched on the Drumcode shows. When did Drumcode events start? When was your first ever Drumcode event?
I think probably end of the 00s, 2008, 2009, something like that. We might have done something similar earlier, but not the way it became. So yeah, I would say maybe around 20 years ago, a bit less maybe.
Do you have a favourite Drumcode event, or any of the events that really stand out to you?
I mean, we've done some really amazing shows. I mean, the Drum Sheds ones, the last 2 years has been amazing, because it's such a big space, and it's in London, where I think maybe our core crowd is still. But every year in Miami we're doing Drumcode, and that's always like,
Yeah, they're great.
yeah, we've always had a good following in Miami. We've done it at Space, now we did it at Factory Town, and different venues over the years. So that's like a mainstay, which is always, because it's kind of like the start of the season, and it's always a nice one. This year, it feels like we're back with the Drumcode parties, and it's slowly building it back. Yeah.
One thing that I was very lucky to attend last year was when we did Croatia
and
Yacht
of course,
Week.
yeah.
And something that made me realise there, which I knew before, but it just confirmed it, is that when people are Drumcode fans, they're like real Drumcode fans, aren't they? With like tattoos and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, because it has become like a community as well, which for me was always important, because I come from community, and that sort of, in the early days, that was what the scene was about. So I think I've maybe tried to like create something similar and make people feel that they're part of it, you know, and also like good vibes, you know, no elitism, no exclusion, like everyone's welcome. And so we've done this thing in Croatia for 3 years, and a lot of people, I think, maybe misjudged that a little bit, because it says Yacht Week, so people thinking we're sitting on massive luxury yachts and sipping champagne, which is not really the case.
No.
I mean, there's our catamarans and quite affordable prices. But yeah, it was an amazing experience. We had some of the biggest core Drumcode fans there. You know.
And they all just knew each other as well. Like everyone got on. They were like they'd met the years before at other Drumcode events. I was like, that's so nice.
Yeah, it was amazing.
A real sense of community, as you said. So as you mentioned before, next year's 30 years of Drumcode.
Yeah, it's insane.
So you started in 1996. So
Yeah.
what are you going to do to celebrate 30 years?
I don't know if I should say this, but so I started it in May 96, which also happens to be my birthday, and that would be my 50th birthday next year.
Wow.
So it's me 50 and Drumcode 30. How do you celebrate that?
Yeah.
It makes me scared. It makes me want to just go home and.
No, you've got
No,
so
we
much to
actually
celebrate.
we do have some plans already. There's one suggestion on the table that I'm not sure I can talk about it yet. But
Okay.
let's say there's an island involved and there's
Okay.
a lot of parties and a good weekend of a lot of fun.
When you started Drumcode 30 years ago, did it have the same vision as it does today?
I think. I mean, obviously things change. Dance music, 30 years.
Yeah.
I don't think if I would have kept it the same as I did back then, it would not be as popular as it is today. And I think, you know, I changed over the years. Like I said previously, I was a pretty angry, elitistic techno person in my early 20s. You know, but in that age, you really identify with things, and you're like a bit rebellious. And once I had kids, I started traveling the world, seeing all these different cultures, playing for different crowds, playing with other DJs. All this different information kind of shaped what Drumcode became and who I became. And today, like I said, it's a lot more inclusive. It's a bigger brand. It's not just about techno anymore. It's more about electronic music. We cover several genres today. We have more melodic editions of our parties. We have more techno editions. So I think, I mean, I would never have been able to guess that in 30 years I would sit here and still run the brand in 96 the way it is. But yeah, it has changed, but I still feel the core is kind of the same. And that basically everything that Drumcode was about when I started is, would I play this track out? Yes, I would. Okay, I'll sign it.
I'll sign it. And that's still.
And that's pretty much it. Today, there's a lot of tracks I get as demos that I would maybe play out. It doesn't mean I sign everything I would play, because I have to prioritize the artists on the labels and a lot of other things. But that's kind of where I am still. It's a label made by a DJ for DJs, and was never really meant to do more than that. It's like dance music with a techno core. And I feel you can, if you listen to the first releases and the releases today, I still feel you can hear the similarities, and that it has there's a core way of producing the tracks and an idea that has gone through it for 30 years.
Do you listen back a lot to early Drumcode?
Not a lot. I maybe once or twice a year, when I have some sort of moment, or I dig through vinyl, or I do something where I need to find something, and I get stuck and I'm like, oh, you know, or I sit and scroll on my computer and I start going back on beat or whatever, sometimes, but not a lot, no.
Yeah.
You could probably find tracks to play me and I wouldn't be able to say this is released on Drumcode.
Really?
It's happened to me now, because 30 years,
It's a lot of music.
hundreds and hundreds of releases, which means well over 1,000 tracks. It's hard, it's hard to remember them all.
Yeah. How many releases have you actually had?
I was thinking that in my head now, and I don't even know. I think we're on 200 something, but then, you know, the sister labels, there was Code Red. I got a other label called True Soul, which is over 100 releases as well. I've done offshoots for Drumcode. I have something called Drumcode Limited, which is still more raw and real techno. Drumcode now is more, I would say, it's more commercial. It's more vocals and things going on, but DC Limited still is keeping the old kind of raw techno thing alive. So with all that,
A lot.
a lot.
I want to talk about Ibiza.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we're sat here in your beautiful home in Ibiza. You've lived here on the island for quite some time now.
8 years.
Really?
Yeah.
When was the first time you ever came to Ibiza, and why did you come to Ibiza for the first time?
So yeah,
You're smiling there, so there's obviously a story.
Yeah, it's always a story, isn't it? No, so I think it was either 2001 or 2002, and back then techno wasn't a thing in Ibiza at
Yeah.
all. And I would play Mallorca sometimes, and so I'd play this club called BCM, which was quite a big deal. Still is.
I was going to say that
still
exists, doesn't it?
Actually, I think I'm playing there this year again. But
Nice.
I played there, and this guy, I think his name is Tony, that runs it, or the promoter. He had decided to make a party in Ibiza with a bit more techno acts at Eden, which is in San Antonio.
Okay.
So that was my first experience. I came to San Antonio, stayed in some hotel there, and played at Eden. And I think about 100 people were at the club. Yeah, I didn't get it really. I didn't get the full experience. I didn't go to Amnesia. I didn't go to Pasha or anything like that because I was
In and out.
I was touring in and out 1-2 days. But yeah, I was definitely interested in Ibiza because you would hear things, and it was like it was becoming a thing. I mean, it was already a thing for the UK scene and everything, but for techno it wasn't. There was no clubs playing techno. And then in 2003, Cocoon opened, and that was a lot closer to my sound than what I was doing. And I already knew Sven. I've been playing with him, and also I did like a Cocoon release at some point and things like that. So I got invited to play there. I think the first one was, maybe they did 2002 as well, but I wasn't there. But 2003, I think I played my first Cocoon show.
Sorry, from that first gig at Eden, you hadn't come back to Ibiza until that 2003 gig.
Yeah, 2 years later.
2
I
years
think.
later.
Yeah.
And did you see the change there at all?
Well, no, because Cocoon at that point was trying to establish something new, and Amnesia gave Sven a chance basically to do what he wanted, and his bookings and that sound, more techno or the German thing that was going on. And so I would say Sven was one who brought that whole way of partying and that sound into the island. Bringing Richie Hart in, some of the Germans, guys like Ricardo Villalobos, Luciano, Marco Carola. Cocoon had them all at that point, but it was still very small. So I remember like a normal night in 2003 would have about 1,500 people. It wouldn't be packed, but it would be good. The people who came loved it.
And it would be main room and terrace.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the terrace at that point is not what it is today. It wasn't what it is today. It was a lot more sparse. Sound was worse. The DJ booth was in another place, and it was more of a sort of lounge.
And it was open air.
It was open air. If they wanted, I think they could open and close it or something. I don't remember, but yeah, they hadn't rebuilt the terrace yet. So the main room was where Sven would play, and that was the main attraction. And there was some weird German guys playing weird music, which was minimal, which hadn't taken off yet. But it would, like 2 or 3 years later, that became the thing, and the terrace would be ram-packed, and everything changed forever. So, but that first year, there was, he was building something, and within 2 or 3 years, that it just said boom, and then it became the biggest night on the island, pretty much, with full house, 8,000 people every week. I mean, that's where we first met, even like years ago, when I got to know you. So,
and so consistent as well. Like it started, and then it just. I mean, how many years do you think it was at Amnesia? 15, maybe.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that.
Or 14.
Yeah.
30, yeah, and I played there on and off over the years. But then, it got really big, and then I also started to play for Mega Night at Privilege. So I did a lot of Privilege nights with Mauro Picotto, and that was even more techno. So I think maybe I was a bit, at the time, I was considered a bit too techno for Cocoon. So I played Privilege a lot as well.
And that was a more techno night.
Yeah.
And who else was playing?
Well, Mauro Picotto, who was he was quite big name back then. People like Marco Bailey.
Nice.
I don't remember the bookings that well, to be honest.
What was like the vibe like at that time? What was the energy like on the island compared to what it is now? I mean, it's so different now.
Yeah, it's so different. I think what I remember most is that clubs like Amnesia would stay open longer if they wanted to, and usually the mornings would go into mornings or to noon even. And then there would be after hours, and there was no regulations for the after hours. So there would always be, Cocoon always had official after hours that were usually taking place either on the beaches, because you could still play music on the beaches.
Did they used to do them at Cala?
Yeah, I think everywhere, there's
Wow.
probably not a beach where they,
Didn't do it.
where there were like beach huts with like a restaurant and some good place to put a DJ booth. But I was at some of those, and there would be like 3,000 people coming to the beach, and we would go direct after Cocoon at 8 or 9 or 10 or 11 in the morning. We just went straight to the beach, and Sven would start play slowly, and people start arriving for hours, and it would go to midnight, literally, and we'd just be there all day in the sun, doing what we did best, and it was just really good times. We were that age. And then after that, sometimes we kept on. We went to some villa and kept going. That's my.
So it could be like 2 days long.
Yeah, I've had even maybe 3 days at some point. But
Really? Wow.
well, those years, there was 2 or 3 years in a row where Richard Houghton would rent the villa. So I would stay there with him, Ricardo Villalobos, Toby Neumann. I remember seeing Monica Cruz there, like a lot of the German guys and some other people, like maybe 20 people staying in the villas, and then they would put on after hours after the beach. And at one point that after went for 36 hours from Tuesday evening to Thursday morning. So
Wow.
yeah, it was hedonistic.
Do you have like, I'm sure there's loads, but like a craziest place you've ever played at in Ibiza, or like a party that you'll just never ever forget?
I mean, all those after hours, I would probably say those 36 hours. That's why I mention it, because it was just, people would come and go. There was it's like a Berghain, but in a villa, you know. It just kept open, and just new floods, so people would come in and others would leave, and some of the core members would obviously be there the whole time. And I mean, I think that's the longest DJ set I ever seen as well, because Richie played from start to finish, so he did play for 36 hours. And the first 24 he played back to back with Ricardo and Toby, but then they kind of dropped off, and he kept playing for another 12 hours. So that's.
And you were there the whole time?
I was there the whole time. I might have had an hour's sleep at some point,
Yeah.
but I was staying in the villa, so yeah.
What's the longest set you've ever played?
10, 12 hours. I did.
Still so
Yeah,
long,
I did that Berghain at some point. Yeah, closing Berghain. That's always, because yeah, you just keep playing this. They tell you to stop, basically.
I've never been to Berghain
Yeah.
before.
No, I used to play there a lot back in the day.
Did you?
Yeah. Well, every year we used to have. Actually, I forgot to mention earlier. We used to do Drumcode Berghain for many years.
know that.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest nights for many years, and I think it got too big for them. They didn't like it because it got too
Yeah.
and we got too commercials. In the end, it was time to,
Just go
you
separate
know,
ways.
but it was beautiful years. Maybe 8 years in a row, or 6, 7, 8 years. Yeah, they call it Drumcode Total at Berghain. Yeah.
Wow.
And that's probably, I think I closed it up. And at that time, Berghain didn't used to go for as long as it does now. It was in the early days when they starting to push the limits. So
Ibiza and Berghain have kind of swapped roles there. Now Ibiza's got like the
it
limitations.
did swap roles for me a little bit. Because I kind of left that not left, but I kind of started to play more other things more regularly than just that techno sound.
Yeah.
And I think Ibiza played a big role in that. When I came here, that really changed it connected me back to how I felt about the music when I started listening to it in the 90s. It was more fun, it was less, techno had become very kind of one-dimensional in a way at points in the early 2000s. Saturated. It was just loops, and it was going harder and harder and faster and faster. At some point, when that happens to techno, I'm like, I'm out. Because when I was really young, I liked that stuff. But then the more I DJ, the more I couldn't really identify with those hard parties so much. So I've always kind of checked out and done my thing when that happens. And there was a point early 2000s when that happened, and that was the same point where I started to come to Ibiza. And that kind of reconnected me with the fun and the joy and the different way of playing the music. You know, minimal came in heavy mid 2000s, and it was more trippy and psychedelic, and it was a different way of partying to the music. It was longer parties, it was more relaxed, and in a different environment, you know, under the sun. And
you've obviously like had lots of like different residencies here in Ibiza, but how do you think that role of a resident has changed? Because obviously before it was a lot more like longer sets, and now it's very short sets. You know, obviously I don't think clubbers have like the attention span that they probably used to either. So how do you think that role as a resident has changed here in Ibiza now?
I mean, the way I see it in terms of, I mean, today I think a lot more DJs are getting booked based on, you know, their social media, their popularity to sell tickets.
Yeah.
Back then, I think the clubs were more booking DJs that they really trusted, being able to move an Ibiza crowd. And at that time, if you would put the wrong person on the wrong sound or something too hard, or it just wouldn't work. There was like a very specific way of playing in Ibiza. Whatever it was house or progressive or tech house or whatever it was like you needed to have the groove in the music in a certain way. That's how I experienced anyway, and how I felt when I came here, and that's something I really learned. And today I think a lot more different styles are being booked, still with focus on the slower stuff, but they also do hard techno nights, and so I think that has changed. I think it was more of a rule-based way of playing back in the day. Not rules as in bad rules, but it was just more a way of shaping your sets and thinking about it. And I don't see that as much today when I go out and listen to people. People just more come and do their thing, you know.
Yeah.
Just play what they play everywhere else, and that's it. I think the role of a resident, I think people come to hear you. I mean, I think people know, at least with me, that I kind of have my Ibiza side, which is more the groovier side of me. I've always kind of not wanting to take part in the too hard nights here, because I really appreciate, and that's probably because I'm coming from that era in Ibiza, I really appreciate to try to preserve that energy that the island have in my sets, and but still make it me, obviously, like not trying to be someone else or something else. And then I think it's important that you kind of adapt to the sound of the night where you're playing. For example, I'm getting booked by Solid Grooves every year, and it's a pure tech house night. So I go there and I play my version of tech house, or the tech house I like. And I think people really appreciate that here, to see someone like me stepping out and doing different sets for different environments. And I really enjoy it.
I was just going to say, is that nice?
It's challenging. It takes a lot of time, because, you know, I mean, I'm always searching for music across all genres, but sometimes I haven't played like that for a while. So I really need to dive into, okay, I'm going to play Solid Grooves. I need to, you know, I'm playing after Pausa, or, you know, with Ilario or BB or whoever. And that makes me think and reconnect with a period in my life where I did play a lot of minimal and that sort of music. So
yeah. And this year you have your residency with Resistance at Amnesia.
Yes.
So you kind of like played Amnesia in two eras, you know, back in Cocoon days, and now the residency with Resistance, which I don't think a lot of DJs, if not anyone, can probably really say.
Maybe not.
you know? Do you think, do you still have like that same feeling going to play at Amnesia?
I do. I mean, for me, there's something in the walls in Amnesia, and it's, you know, it's because it's the same club it's always been, pretty much, and that's the only one now left with the, like, where you can still feel the essence of Ibiza. And because I was there, and I did have some of my best nights out ever in that club when I was in my peak, you know, late 20s, early 30s, full of energy, partying like a maniac. Some of my core clubbing memories are made in that club. So for me, it's super special to be there always. I always have that feeling when I first came there and everything was so big and special, and, you know, those crazy nights in Ibiza and the freedom here, you know, like people who hasn't been here or who wasn't there back then, the freedom I think people felt coming to this island and being part of the nightlife back then was unlimited. It was everyone under the same roof, and it wasn't that common back then, you know. You would have people from all over the world, all colors, all genders, whatever, and rich, poor, mixed on one dance floor, you know. The whole VIP culture wasn't there yet, and it was something so beautiful with that era. And Amnesia was one of the places where that really happened. So for me, that still holds a very special place in my heart. I mean, I love all the other clubs as well. I'm not saying someone is better than the other, but it feels a little bit like a homecoming, for sure.
It's like a full circle.
Yeah.
I know what you mean, though. I feel the same. I mean, I obviously worked at Amnesia for such a long time, and it's got a very special place in my heart as well. But I do always feel like when you walk into Amnesia, sometimes, especially when it's daytime and everyone's, you know, running around the office, and sometimes I think, like, if these walls could talk, like the amount of stuff that's happened in this club, and it is still, as you said before, it's four walls that it's always been since the very beginning.
Exactly.
It's special.
Same owners, same everything. Like, yeah, it's special. It's very special.
How do you hope that Resistance represents the next generation of techno fans and artists that are coming through?
I mean, I think the lineup is great. It's a mixture between old established names and some newer names that are popular at the moment. You know, to come and see the production as well that Resistance is offering. It's going to transform the club into something quite special, I think. So overall, I think it's quite a winning concept. I'm really looking forward to see what the season will turn out like.
Me too, and I think Amnesia is such a great home for it.
Yeah, I mean, they did do a privilege.
Yeah, I remember
before the renovation, and it was like walking into Blade Runner. You know, they really transformed that place.
They
so,
did.
You know, it's we might not recognize our old club.
Yeah.
No, we will. I think I've seen some
will.
designs, and it's very tasteful, but it will be next level. You know.
I agree. And speaking of, you know, present times, something else really big happening is that you have an album coming out on the 16th of July after 22 years.
13th of June.
13th of June. Sorry, don't know where
That's okay. It's only a month off.
13th of June after 22 years.
Yes, you got that correct. Yeah, so it's been 22 years. Basically, I wanted to do an album for a long time, but life came in between. The last one I did was called Ignition Key, and it came on my label True Soul. It was more of a listening / showing a different side of me, and that was connected as well to what we were talking about. This was in 2002. I was kind of getting fed up with all the canon fodder techno at the moment, so I did Ignition Key, which is more a melodic piece. Went back a lot more to my Detroit roots and things like that. Anyway, fast forward 23 years. I had 3 kids. I DJ'd my ass off, and I never got around to do another album. Actually, I did. I did one in COVID, and I was almost putting it out, but then I decided not to. And that was a lot more introspective, a lot more vocals, a lot more listening as well. But I kind of chickened out. I didn't think it was good enough, with a hand on my heart. I'm just being honest here. And also I realized the amount of time I would have to spend on that album would take away from my core things. That's the thing. Sometimes I don't think about time management. So anyway, so there's a couple of bits from the album I made in COVID on this new album, and then I made a bunch of new stuff as well.
So you've been working on this for
some of it
a while.
is from years ago. Yeah, 2 of the tracks actually.
Okay.
But some of the ideas and start using actual vocalists and things like that started with that first album. The ideas and starting to record vocals and the whole process of. And then this kind of just came together because a few years ago I took the conscious decision to start producing a lot more again, and I've been putting a lot more time and effort into it to get back on my production fee. And did a bunch of singles, but there's been leftover tracks in between that I like, but I feel they were more suitable for an album rather than singles.
Have you enjoyed the process of putting an album together?
I do, yeah, I love it. It's stressful and you hate it, you love it, you're unsure. It's like anyone. Just because you have 30 years of experience doesn't mean you're confident. So, but yeah, I guess I've tried to go beyond what a normal Drumcode single is, but I haven't gone crazy. I've still played it somewhat safe within the Drumcode limits because it's coming out on Drumcode. So it's a Drumcode album trying to be a little bit maybe more timeless than some of the music that's getting put out today, which is very like right now. Some of the songs are a bit more less influenced by what's going on exactly right now and more hopefully they will last a bit longer.
Love that. What have you called it?
It's called Explorer Volume 1, and that's because I'm exploring all my different influences and sound. Like it ranges from kind of tech house grooves and melodic to more techno. There's break beats on there. There's an ambient piece. A couple of different things. So it's a good representation of where I am at the moment as a DJ and producer, I think.
I love that. And just before 30 years of Drumcode.
Yes.
And your 50th.
Yes. Maybe we can get Volume 2 in time for that. Who knows?
Yeah. Oh, that's super exciting.
It
Super
is.
exciting. Is there any from all of the tours and all of the records and everything you've done in your career, is there anything that you're most proud of?
Oof.
That's a big question because you've done so much stuff.
Yeah. I think what I'm most proud of is it's not a single thing, but I think it's helping others through Drumcode. I mean, seeing others succeed and not, rather than just always me being on top at Drumcode, I feel like I've given people a lot of big opportunities and to play with me, to play next to me, to close Drumcode parties, things that maybe I should have done, but I've also like to share it. That's for me, it's the most important. I think that's part of why the label is still successful as well, because we never really had any artist beef. We've always been supporting our artists. Even, I mean, people come and go, and of course, sometimes when artists that you build for years, they leave you. Of course, it's hard, but I've tried to accept it and move on and find new talent and cultivate every time. And I've come to learn that it's actually just beautiful to see those people find their wings and a home and then move on and become what they have. So I think that's the community part of the label has been the most important for me, I think.
I think that's such a nice way to put it, because I know I've had conversations before where people are like, oh, they've left, they've gone, but knowing that you've been there from the beginning and given them that platform and built that for them to go and actually realise that, I think that's really nice. Yeah,
I mean, of course there's been tough moments where you realise things, but I don't have bad blood with any of my old art. We're all friends now. It's all good. We support each other, and people move on. That's life.
Yeah.
That's how it should work. And if you dwell on those things, that's when your career is over. It's better to find new talent and then do it yourself. And in a way, it's also gave me a kick up the arse to start producing more myself and take that role back to Drumcode, because that's how it started. And you know, I got married, I had kids, and then my life changed a lot. I got divorced, and instead of, you know, getting bitter, it's better to like focus hard on what you love and trying to find that passion back to, like, your way back to the passion where you first started. And that was a lot about producing the music myself and being in control of the whole process and being creative, you know.
If you could watch back one moment of your life, like as if we had like a big screen up now and I was like, give me a moment and you can watch it back. It could be anywhere. Which would it be?
Definitely be one of the earlier memories from the 90s, because we were so excited. I mean, that when I got home from school and heard that answer machine message is one of them. My first live set, we played live in some little club in Stockholm, me and my friend who started to produce together, Peter Benish is his name. And we've done like 2 or 3 like drum and bassy tracks, like breakbeats, and I know I have them on cassette somewhere, and I remember them being quite good actually, and we performed them live, but I would love to hear and see those tracks because I've lost a bunch of cassettes when I moved.
Oh, no.
I had like cassette tapes called Adam 1, Adam 2, and with all the music I made before I had that tape, and it's probably 200 tracks, and I can't find them. I mean, most of it's junk. It's just like experimenting.
Yeah, but still going back
but I
to
would
them.
love to go through that now, and I'm sad somehow when I moved to Ibiza, some stuff got lost, and they might still be somewhere. I just haven't
Somebody's
found.
probably got them then,
Yeah.
somewhere in the house. If you're
Yeah.
watching, give them back. To end the podcast, we play a game where it's called Pass the Question. So every guest passes a question on to the next guest. The previous guest was Mark Knight, and his question for the next guest was, if you could get in the studio with absolutely anybody, dead or alive, who would it be?
Ooh, it's difficult. Bob Marley, maybe?
Wow, that would be so interesting.
Yeah. I still think we're not putting enough reggae and dub influences in techno. I love that. So,
That would be your one.
yeah, that'd be a cool one.
Okay, if you have to ask a question for the next guest, what's your question? It doesn't even have to be music related, it could be anything.
Should have told me this before.
Sorry.
So I had a chance to think. I don't want to ask something boring.
You can think, we can just cut the pause out.
Who is the next guest? I'm not allowed to know that.
The next guest is Nicole.
Oh yeah? Maybe, what's your current view of the scene and the techno scene and the hard techno scene that has emerged in the last 2 years? Do you think it's positive or negative for the scene, and how it's the social media part of it is impacting everything?
Very interesting topic.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. Finally, the podcast is called Can You Put Me on Guest List? Do you have a guest list rule?
Not really. Some weeks I'm more on it than others, but I try to put some fans on sometimes when I'm coming to places. People ask me online and stuff.
You're pretty good with guest
Yeah,
lists.
I'm pretty good with guest lists, I think.
If you've got a Drumcode tattoo, you can definitely come in.
Definitely.
Adam, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm so glad that we made this happen.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, have a great, well, I'll see you around, but have a great season.
Thank you very much. You too. I hope to see you down at Amnesia at some point.
We will. We can
Yeah.
stand there and be like, what can these walls tell us?
Yeah, the good old days.
The good old
No,
days.
we shouldn't be reminiscing too much. I
No.
think what's happening now is great and very important, and I think it's going to be an amazing season.
I do too. I definitely
There's only
think-
one Ibiza. It's changing, but it's still only one Ibiza.
Agree. Thank you so much.
Thank you.